Hello again, and welcome to another one of Arthur's N-Gage reviews, or is it a rant? I'm not sure. Possibly a bit of both in this one. If you model in the steam era of any variety, of any age really, or up to first generation diesels, then you'll want wagons. And you'll want short wheelbase, mostly wagons, and possibly lots of them. So we tend, those of us who model in that era, to collect a fair few from the major manufacturers. Some of us might store them on shelves or on the layouts or in cassettes if you're on the exhibition circuit, but perhaps most of us like to keep them in the boxes. And to be honest, if you keep them in a nice box, should you ever sell them on, they'll be better value. So let's have a look at the boxes or the packaging and see what's happening in the N-Gage world in the case of wagons in that case. So we start off with our friends from Pico, and in the beginning you had a plastic box, something like that, inside your model, and a bit of foam. It may or may not have had a card, or a card with a hanging clip, I don't know what they call it for the shops, but you know the sort of thing I mean, attached to it, and that may or may not have had the number of the code number of the item, or the stock number of the item inside. Anyway, over time what you ended up with was a nice little box, foam insert, model inside, press fit cap, which over time one tends to lose, and I think that particular item is getting on for 40 years old now and not doing too bad. Yes, eventually the foam will perish, and if we lose the top and the foam perishes, with a model of that size we can find another box for it, and the best one, if you can get hold of them, is a matchbox, nice little wooden ones. So that's early Pico, and of course we have the kits. The kits come in these quality cardboard box that's been going for absolute years, and now they've actually got a barcode and modern stuff on. And of course, once you've made your kit up, don't get rid of the box, but put some tissue paper in it, and that will keep your model safe and sound. I'm a big fan of Pico rolling stock, by the way. Not everybody is. The purists don't particularly like it, but when we consider how long these 10-foot wheelbase wagons have been going, with couplings that actually work, with wheels that spin round, and you can have a train of those 20 so wagons, reverse it through a set of points, and it won't come adrift. There's not many scales or gauges they can actually do that, but Pico wagons have this rideability built in. So there's the kits. Now let's bring you up to date, and here's my latest Pico wagon that I bought last week, and you see that the plastic box is now much larger than the original. We have this nice picture at the back. It has one of these hangy things on, And I don't know if you can see the camera, there's a piece of plastic that runs over the top here, see through, that presumably is supposed to keep the wagon in place inside the packaging. And there's a plastic base with some areas to hold the wheels in there. So there's our wagon, lovely model. In it goes, plastic base goes back on, top goes back on, and it rolls around all over the shop. All the modern labelling that you would expect. So all in all, a pretty sophisticated piece of packaging. Utter shame that it fails in its major job of keeping the wagon intact. If anybody's got any ideas of how else that should be achieved, then please let me know in the feedback. One other good thing, of course, the flicky thing will actually pull off very easily, so when you have these boxes you can then put them into another container and maximise the number of wagons you've got in there. So very nice models in very nice packaging until you come to remove them. Okay, that's Mr. Pico. I suppose next we ought to look at Graham Farish. And in the beginning, Farish gave us the cardboard box, and then they went to the cardboard box with a plastic sleeve and a piece of expanded plastic inside to hold the model. It's just a scale down sort of thing that you'd expect to find an engine in, and not bad, but over the years of course the plastic yellows and eventually splits through handling, and so doesn't look that attractive over the years. And of course you've got this see-through cover that sooner or later will come to grief. Anyway, that was then. This is now, and recently your wagons will appear in boxes, something like that. Okay, very attractive, and our wagon is being held very securely in place, and we can see it through this see-through window. The rest of the box is made of cardboard. It has the modern stuff on the end. Very good, because it means that we can put the right wagon back in the right box, and should we ever want to sell it, it's an important piece of marketing. So well done both Pico and Farish for that. Right, opening the Farish box, we then have this, how am I going to describe it? It's a plastic arrangement. There may or may not be a backing card in the box. So we have this plastic arrangement which locks like that. The sides fall apart, the top comes off, and out pops the wagon. So very secure coming out and very secure going back in. Put the wagon in, pop the top on, that locks, and it's ready to go back in the box. Here's where the problems start, of course, because the box has this window in it, so one has to place the attachment in without fouling the window or getting it out, and it's not always, there we go, straightforward. If you've got any little cards or anything with it, then they can then go in the bottom once you've got it back together again, it's all good. So the only thing I would mention about this is the fact that eventually this plastic inside will start to yellow, possibly go brittle, but I think long before then you will have snagged the window and the box will become a box with a hole in it. The later versions don't have white plastic, they have a see-through plastic, and there is a very, very nice model of a midden wagon, weathered. Pity about the price. You can buy 2 of those for 1 of those. Is it a better model? I don't know. It's got sprung buffers though, and springs can be lost. So that's our friends at Farish. No real complaints, just minor problems. Now, if you were a collector of Matheson, no longer available, you would have had a very, very similar packaging setup to Graham Farish, in that we have a cardboard box, a see-through window, and inside a plastic insert. Again, descriptions and the relevant numbers on the end of the box. These are quite difficult to open up, and then inside, a very nice touch, which was this see-through plastic piece that held the wagon in place. The wagon can only go in one way, so there's our lovely Matheson model in its box, in its packaging. This is quite cheap, this piece of plastic that holds it. Right there again, it's held very securely by this top piece, and then one has the same problem as one has with Farish, as in getting it back in. If you don't get those right out, it doesn't happen. You either get it right first time or it doesn't happen. So if you're the proud owner of any Matheson wagons, I suggest you keep the boxes, because they already command additional prices, and I would say that they're well into the collector's item arena. Then of course came the pole, and the pole started out with this, which has been designed specifically to go on racks in model stores. Great for the model stores, but for the owner, the modeler, who wants to store this away, well, we are in trouble with this. The packaging itself comes apart quite nicely. That clicks open. We have the cardboard insert that comes out. Usually comes out easier than this, but I am of course working around the camera. So there's our cardboard insert. That reveals an inner cradle made of plastic, which actually holds the model itself quite securely, and that cradle of course is the same sort of design as is inside the Graham Farish box. So this is okay for the man in the shop who wants to sell you it, but no good if you want to store it, because that is going to take acres of space. Good quality plastic, everything well made, nice label, nice data card, nothing wrong with it. apart from it's too big. So then what did DePaul do? They rethought the idea and they came along with this. And here we have an outer cardboard sleeve. There's no window in there. We have a very strong box. Inside the strong box, which has the usual stuff on the end, we have a hardened foam insert which actually holds the model. Some models, and that's holding the model, which can be clipped out or put back in. Very similar to a lot of American diesels had this sort of thing set up, and this is a very strong box. Some of these boxes additionally have a piece of clear plastic that goes over as well, but this particular box hasn't got it, or hasn't got it now. And as you can see, it's quite large compared to a Farish box. It's twice as large, but I would say it'll last twice as long. And compared to the Pico box, it's almost twice as large. Anyway, DePaul further refined their offering to us in the way of packaging. This is exactly the same structure. They've changed the colour. They've got a computer generated label on the front, and isn't that a nice piece of packaging? Yes, it's larger, you're going to need a bigger box, but you can stack these forever to go there. And even their plain offerings, they're undecorated, come along in the same box. So it's not like a cardboard box the Pico kit would come in, but this is the same as that. This happened to be a 20-ton mineral unpainted kit. Well, it's not a kit, it's made up. There's its code. That's what I've done with it. Names of my grandchildren on there. And I've just written on the label there that what it's turned into. So there we have it. There are the main players: Pico, Farish and DePaul, and their current and past packaging. I suppose while we're at it, we ought to look at vehicles as well, because there's an excellent range now of N-gauge vehicles for us to put on our layout. And whether we're doing modern image or whether we're doing 1920s or 30s, anywhere in between, we'll probably want vehicles. Now, the two major manufacturers here are Oxford and BT models, or base toys you could call them. Not sure what they are now. And of course the other major manufacturers dabble as well. I mean, here is a Graham Farish bus, and it's in a piece of packaging of the same design as DePaul started off with. A cardboard insert and which you can take out the back, and there's the model, and the packaging, I would say, is so-so. When we come to the BT models, all their packaging it's a shrunk down version of the DePaul really. We have this outer cardboard sleeve with a window in it with nothing in the window. Then we have a fairly stout little plastic box which we have to fight our way into. The relevant stuff on the end. Very good. And then once we've taken the top off, there's our model inside this plastic insert. This is quite cheap plastic by the looks of things, so over time I think that's going to yellow and it's going to crack. And as most of these wagons are a push fit in, I think over time that will deteriorate. And again, this box, this see-through box, isn't that clever. But keeping the price down, it's simple packaging, it's going to protect our model. Very efficient packaging, and the only thing I would say about it is that it's sometimes difficult to see which particular model you've got in there from the top without reading the side, particularly if you've got a number of them. But this is all small beer. Lovely models, lovely models. Oh, they're metal, same as Oxford die cast. Now Oxford die cast, of course, have a whole, what I would call, packaging family. You have the smaller boxes, the larger boxes. They're colour coded. They're labels on the back. Eventually, somewhere down there, you'll actually, oh no, it's here. You'll actually read what is inside. Not a particular fan of the size of lettering. However, the box itself is quite attractive, and I imagine they sit very well on the shelves in the shop. And if you're the sort of person who wants to have these on the shelves, or you're the person who maybe not a railway modeller, maybe you're just a collector, then this is ideal packaging for you. If you're not a collector but a railway modeller and you're going to have this black and white taxi on your station, then it's a different ball game, because we have the outer cardboard sleeve, large window, nothing in it, that really fits with a tab at the back, and over time will get damaged, particularly in my household. We now have a very sturdy plastic see-through top, which is excellent because we can see both sides of the model, front and rear, and that Pico style just pulls off, and there is our plinth with our model on top. Now it's secured by, you see that? A screw, a tiny little screw underneath, and if it's a larger model it'll have more than one screw. Now there's something to get lost on the floor, on the carpet, and you unscrew it, and you need a very small Phillips excuse me, to do it. And of course the bigger problem is when you then put this back on the plinth and you have to line up the screw with the screw hole on the underside of the model. Will keep you amused for hours. When you put it all back together, then you have the problem of getting that strong case back into the sleeve. And as previously stated, bigger models will have more than one screw. So here we have the British Railways Bedford, 2 screws. Lovely model, very well presented, just a bit of a faff to get out and a larger faff to safely put back, and then you have the danger of messing your packaging up when you put it back in. I think we're done. Any feedback will be very much appreciated. Packaging is one of the things I have a slight bee in my bonnet about, but hopefully that will make you think and help you as you go along in our wonderful world. Well, I suppose no review would be complete without thinking about things that actually don't come in boxes. You might buy wagons off an auction site like eBay and they may be cheaper because they're not boxed. So what do you do with those? Well, simple explanation is those rather nice boxes from Pico that we didn't know what to do with. There's room on the back for us to put in a piece of paper to say what's actually in the box, and here's one I had earlier, no less than 4 Pico wagons. These have been weathered down as an iron ore train, so there we have 4 wagons and our iron ore train. So 5 boxes of that would equate to a 20 wagon freight, which would be very nice. Here's another one, a couple more wagons. There's a salt wagon in there and a little bit of bubble wrap just to keep everything nice and tight. So maybe those Pico boxes aren't so bad after all. And of course there is always the case of kits that come in bags. Small plug here for Osborne models. Very good if you're a Great Western fan, if you engage in particular. There's a kit complete with its Pico chassis. That'll get built over the winter. And of course nowadays with advances in printing techniques, things are becoming available, like this wonderful model of a milk float. So we obviously need a box for that at some stage, and like Mr. Woolworth, of course, now is the time to mix and match. So here's a box, very stout box from PD Marsh. Signal, the signal has been made, the signal has been put onto a layout. Don't get rid of the box because that would make a very nice home for a completed milk float. Or maybe if you're a modern image modeler, you could paint it as a post wagon, because I believe that history is repeating itself and electric vehicles are now coming back into vogue. So they tell me. Happy modelling, folks. Bye for now.